All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The Malzberg panel is in full effect. Jessica Tarlov, Democratic political consultant, political strategist at Douglas Schoen, LLC, and Ford O'Connell, Republican strategist, political analyst, and the book, Ford?
Hail Mary, the 10-step playbook for Republican recovery, and hopefully we'll have that recovery in 2016.
Well, let's start with Marco Rubio. You know, it's funny because Cruz went, we talked about him, then Paul went, we kind of forgot about Cruz, and now Rubio went, so we're forgetting about Paul. But I got to say, I think that Marco Rubio, to me, of the three, really had the most impressive rollout.
I would absolutely agree with you. In fact, I'd take it a step further and say even though he's mired at single digits in the polls, he's probably the most undersold Republican candidate in the field. And the reason is he has a compelling narrative and he has a fresh, forward-looking approach both on foreign policy and domestic policy. And if he can harness that youthful charm and hope that Jeb Bush and Scott Walker stumble a little bit on the campaign trail, he very well could be the nominee, but he has to keep the car between the two white lines.
Jessica, his whole theme is moving forward,
right?
And not people of the past, and Hillary fits that definition to a T.
How did I know that Hillary was going to come up within a nanosecond of talking to me? I did think Rubio had an impressive rollout, very sweaty, but he got there. But I would say this forward-looking thing, it's actually a lot of old GOP policies rebranded in a very fresh-faced, charming guy. I mean, we're talking about opposition to same-sex marriage. We're talking about repealing Obamacare. This is a guy, he doesn't have that many innovative ideas. I mean, he's backtracked a bit off of what I thought was, great that he was standing up for comprehensive immigration reform. I mean, how new is this guy really?
I missed Hillary's ideas in her rollout. What was that again?
What, is that what we're talking about?
No, you're criticizing him for having no ideas.
There were no ideas in Hillary's rollout, and her logo was taken from an English supermarket chain, for God's sake.
Well, why not? Her book cover was taken from Carly Fiorina.
True, but understand, Steve and Jessica, why she did this. Make no mistake about it. Her early rollout was really a sign of desperation and weakness because of the fact that her once insurmountable lead in battleground states has been crumbling. In fact, in several states, including Florida, Iowa, and Colorado, Republican candidates are actually leading her in those polls.
By
she had to get out
points.
there to fight back. And her biggest problem still, as we've all pointed out, is according to Bloomberg, 53% of Americans don't think she's trustworthy or honest. And that's her real problem. And that's why she's out there with fluff right now and no real positions.
I would say to you, Ford, I understand what you're saying, Iowa and Colorado. We're talking about a couple of points lead for Rand Paul, who had his rollout last week. Everyone gets a little bit of a bump.
Yeah,
but then you look at Virginia. Wait, can you let me finish?
Let her finish.
Ford,
let her finish. Good.
You look at Virginia, she's still 7 points ahead, where over 50% of the people think that she's untrustworthy anyway. So, I mean, you're picking and choosing.
All right,
and I know that's what people
care about the polls. Wait, guys. I want to know from Jessica. Her tour started today. She sat down with 6 people, and she went on and on. You talk about new ideas. She went on and on about how CEOs are making too much money, blah, blah, blah. Here's a woman who makes $300,000 for a speech for 30 minutes, a woman who runs a Clinton Foundation, which takes billions or millions and millions of dollars from countries that treat women like garbage, and she's sitting there complaining that CEOs make too much money. How does she do it with a straight face, I wonder?
Well, I mean, I can't answer that. I'm not inside Hillary Clinton, but what I can say is that she has, a career and a tenure that she can look back on where she's advocated for a lot of things that I think are important to Americans, like supporting the middle class and climate change and women's empowerment. And I understand that
climate change is important to Americans at all.
Well,
it's
it
at the
should
bottom
be.
of the
Marco
list.
Rubio doesn't even think it exists.
It doesn't exist.
Oh,
not
wow.
man-made.
Okay.
Man-made climate change exists, right? Man-made. We did this. The climate's never changed before.
What are you supposed to say? I'm not a scientist? That's the GOP line on this?
The scientists say it doesn't. I'll give you meteorologists and
every
scientists.
Every scientist you give me who says that, I'll give you one who says that it does.
Right, and that means it's not settled science. Ford, how does she have all these Facebook people in Baghdad, more Facebook followers in Baghdad than any other American city?
Well, the Hillary's social media team wasn't ready for her. The bottom line is they were given 1 to 2 weeks to basically buff up her social media presence. They asked for it, set up dummy accounts, and basically said, we need to have global appeal and broad appeal across the U.S. They didn't think the media would catch on until the accounts actually populated. So this is another case of Hillary trying to say, look at how popular I am on social media, and the whole thing's a farce, and it's a bunch of fluff.
I mean, any explanation other than that, Jessica?
No, and I don't think it really matters. I mean, I don't think that we should be reducing our conversation when we could be talking about policy to how many Facebook friends or fans she has.
If she's forging her Facebook friends.
She's forging everything else, and then she breaks the law.
Well, she is and she does.
You just want to be so negative all the time. If she's going to be the candidate, and it looks like she's going to be, and she's going to have a 50-50 chance of winning the presidency, which means that you might be out of luck come 2016.
All right, we'll
maybe
see.
you should try to look on the bright side in some of those ways and think about what she's done that's good for the country.
More of the panel coming up next. We'll find the bright side. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is Malzberg panel part 2 as we try to find the, what was it? The
bright side.
The bright side, the sunshine. Jessica Tarlov will be looking for that, and Ford O'Connell as well. All right, let's start with Iran here. The Senate committee looks like they're passing the bill that's going to go before the full Senate, and it's going to limit Obama's ability to pass that deal, if there ever is a deal with Iran, without the Senate signing off on sanctions and other aspects of it. Obama is negotiating with them. But, you know, it gets worse and worse. He had a bunch of Jewish leaders over the White House yesterday. It was off the record, and I'm told by someone who was in attendance that he trashed Netanyahu over and over again, said he might have to go to the UN to solve the Palestinian issue, tried to get them to lobby Congress against this bill. At the same time, Russia is now selling missiles, surface-to-air missiles that would make it nearly impossible for the military option to be in play to bomb Iran if they go ahead with their nuclear program. This is all part. Doug Feith, the former Undersecretary of Defense, said that this is Obama's strategy. You know, it's all about Ford. It's all about a strategic alliance with Iran and throwing Israel under the bus. That's it.
Well, it's a lot like basically Russia taking over Eastern Europe and not doing anything. Basically, President Obama is perfectly content with Iran becoming a bigger power in the Middle East and being a handmaiden for the Russians. And yes, he is throwing the Israelis under the bus. The biggest concern here is while this deal is going on, not in place, the Russians lifted a 5-year sanction on Iran and is going to sell them the S-300 missile, which is a defensive missile. But the bottom line is, should the sanctions not be able to be snapped back, or you can't verify what's going on, the Israelis or the Americans or whomever is going to have a harder time to bomb Iran, and basically you're strengthening Iran's hand, and the whole thing's ridiculous and we're getting played, but Obama doesn't seem to care.
And Jessica, I'm so glad that Hillary gave the Russians that reset button. That was so nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's basically been undone fully at this point, and I don't think that that's something that...
Really? You don't think that Hillary's State Department policy through Obama towards Russia, which has blown up in her face,
it's clear now
matters?
that was not a success, is what I'm saying. There is no bright side to the Russian reset.
No
There,
bright
I
side
said
there.
it. Can't smile through that one. But what I can say is that I think that it's a great step that the president wants to negotiate with Congress over the Corker-Menendez bill, and McCarthy said that he'll bring it right to the House as soon as it passes the Senate, and hopefully we'll get
that bill is
congressional...
going to be vetoed, the president
I
said.
don't think that that's... He said, he actually, in language from a couple days ago, didn't use the word veto again, and I just saw Josh Earnest was up there talking about things that the president wants from the bills and wasn't mentioning a veto either. So, yes, we could still see it. We don't know when it's coming necessarily, but there is a chance that we're going to get some compromise here.
Let me add one thing here. The biggest concern here is if you lift the sanctions on on Iran, the president says that you can snap these back into place. It took us 5 years to get these sanctions into place. It took a large international effort.
Which Hillary Clinton negotiated for, I believe, right? Was that a good thing that she did? No.
Hold on. Not if I can't snap them back. What I'm trying to say here is if these are pulled off, then there is no controlling Iran. And the point is we should be doubling the very sanctions that Hillary Clinton put on, because if that's the sanctions that got Iran to the bargaining table, let's double them because maybe we can get a better deal here. I agree that diplomacy is better than war, but the president is not ever going to have the war option on the table, whether it's the U.S., Israel, or the allies.
All right, one more quickly. It looks like the U.S. has either lifted or is lifting the terrorism label from Cuba. This after the president of Cuba, Castro, in front of Obama and the Latin American world, scolded the U.S. for their history, but said, I don't include Obama in this. It's not his fault. So instead of getting up and walking out because your country's just been raked over the coals by a communist dictatorial thug, Obama sat there and smiled. Ford?
This is another case of Obama basically giving economic benefits to a regime for acting poorly. People have to understand that Cuba is making a deal with Russia, and they've been the biggest American folks in the Latin America, Central America
Then
area.
it makes sense,
for quite
Ford.
some
Then
time.
it makes sense that Obama would embrace him. What about
Because
Jessica?
Obama
That's
hates
my point.
America,
He believes
right?
if you pacify dictators, they'll go away, and that shows me a stupid law professor from Harvard who lives in Narnia.
Jessica, final word.
Definitely doesn't live in Narnia, and I think what Obama's trying to do with Cuba is to update the world. It's not 50 years ago.
Oh, really?
Things have changed.
Tell it to the
Jessica, how
people
come
in
no one
prison in
else
Cuba.
invests
They've been
in
there
Cuba?
for 50 years.
Nobody
Gotta go,
else
guys.
invests.
Ford and Jessica, we found no sunshine. Give me fives next.